Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Carnivore Evolution podcast. Today, we have a special guest. We have Lucy today, a fellow carnivore who actually lives in Ireland. There's not many of us. How are you, Lucy, today?
I'm great, thanks, Mark. You talked me into coming on here, so nervous, it's good fun.
Well, it's amazing to have you on because, as I've mentioned to you a few times, there's not many of us out there.
No, I think when I finally discovered you, Mark, it was like I felt like I'd found a treasure because I
Mm,
didn't know anybody else who was living this way or doing this.
mm.
Just so amazing to be able to swap stories there and have our little rants and stuff, complaining.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't
And that's pretty much what we do in the gym, isn't it? We don't even work out. We just rant.
we're kind of complaining club about what everyone is eating and doing and reckon
Yeah, yeah.
nutrition ring in there. Yeah, we do. And then we end up meaning to talk for like 2 minutes. And for the last one, we were there nearly an hour, gabbing
I
away.
know. I know. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you. So, talk to me before. What was life like for you before you actually got into the carnivore diet?
Pretty awful. I'm carnivore now. This is my year anniversary of carnivore.
Mm.
But I just had constant health issues. Now, there's no big major story because I was listening to the amazing interview your colleague was doing there with the guy with all the autoimmune conditions and everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
my story is probably a bit different. I really had to think about this. I suppose I go back to my childhood was where kind of things started going crazy for me. I grew up in Belfast,
Mm.
late 70s. Things were pretty crazy at that time. Uh, the troubles were in full swing, riots, bombs, whatever, everything happening. I was a really, really sensitive child. Thought about things deeply and took it all to heart. I only looking back when I was in my 30s did I realize that there was quite a lot of trauma involved growing up there. It's not normal, but you think it's your normal. So there's a lot of fear. And then there's the biggest thing that happened in my young years was my mom was diagnosed with cancer when she was 44, and I was only 8 years old. And I wasn't told about it. My parents, for whatever reason, decided that it's safer for me to keep it a secret. And basically, she was given 6 months to live, and she struggled on for 2 years. And then when she knew it was time to pack it in and she'd had enough and the pain, they kind of informed me when she had about a week or two to go, and she passed away when she was 46. So that really, really had an impact on my life. And the thing at that time was people kept saying to me, "Oh, these things are genetic, these things are hereditary. You better watch yourself, you better be careful." So I kind of had this, I find it was such a shock to me. I honestly didn't think she was sick. I thought everyone's mom went into hospital all the time, had surgeries and things. So I couldn't cope with the emotions. So I closed in and I stopped. I pretended it didn't happen and I didn't talk to anyone about it. I have a brother and a sister. It impacted them quite differently. My sister's 11 years older than me. My brother's 9 years older than me. So my sister had already moved out and had her own life and everything. I guess my brother started disappearing off for days on end. We couldn't find him. We'd be searching for him. He started, I suppose, having really bad mental health issues. He was hallucinating. Had mania. And eventually it got so bad, he was like smashing the place up. And so the ambulance had to come when I was small. This was shortly after my mom passed, and in a straitjacket. And he was taken off and he was admitted to what I called a mental asylum. I know we don't call it that nowadays, like mental health facility.
Mm.
But it really was just this facility filled with young people, old people, doped up to their eyeballs, all mental health issues. Like that movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Have
Mm.
you
Yeah,
ever
I've seen it. Yeah.
like that? So I had that going on. My brother was gone. I was all on my own. I had a very old fashioned dad who, dads back in those days, they weren't really involved in kind of child rearing, I suppose. He'd managed to escape it. My mum, so I was kind of on my own. And then my very good friend in school, just after my mum died in a fire, and she lived with her grandparents, and there was some electrical fault, and she passed away. So I suppose in my head, I just associated everything with, there was a lot of death, and there was a lot of both my grandparents, my grannies, came down with Alzheimer's. They got put into homes and passed away. I never met my grandfathers because they had heart conditions. So I suppose, and my dad also had all these awful rashes and allergies his whole life, all these weird, and he developed type 2 diabetes. And then when my mom passed, he was drinking a lot and not looking after himself. So I was kind of left on my own. And what happened to me was, because of all this emotional stuff that I couldn't deal with, I just developed all kinds of, I was really, really depressed, and I was anxious. And people used to say, oh, she's just really shy. And nobody talked about mental health back in those days. You were just either normal or you were odd, which is the way it was. So I always had like panic, anxiety. I felt like I'm not going to live long. There's no point. Everybody gets sick. We're all going to die very young. And I developed kind of, I had grey hairs by the age of 15. I kind of socially isolated myself. I had lots of friends, but when you're hiding all these emotions, you can't be yourself. So you're not yourself. So you don't really feel, it's like you're in a crowded room, but you're lonely. You know, loads of people around you, but you're intensely lonely. So the anxiety, depression, I kept getting sick all the time. I had shingles at age 11. Still have a numb patch on my back. I never slept. I had awful teeth. I was always in the dentist, teeth out, fillings, and that's really a reflection as well of what's going on with your bones. So I wasn't good on the inside. I had Raynaud syndrome. Or am I connected? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
And then another strange thing I developed was, like, nobody knew about this. Kind of OCD type tendencies. I would be up for hours at night. I would go around the house and I would stare at all the sockets. This sounds crazy, but I would stare at the sockets and I would repeat numbers over and over again. And I'd do all the sockets to make sure everything was unplugged and everything was safe. And then I'd start the process again. And I would just get stuck. I couldn't get to bed because I had to count the sockets. Then that would go into situations where I couldn't get out of the house because I'd keep repeating things and I'd have to do a certain amount of things. Like this anxiety about leaving. I pulled all my eyelashes out. It's like biting your nails. It's some condition, but I think, when I overbrushed my teeth, I would get stuck at the sink, brushing and brushing and brushing, and I destroyed all the enamel. It was like almost like you're in a trance and you can't. And nobody ever knew I was doing all this stuff. There was no one kind of, I suppose, watching, especially late at night and things like that. Anyway, so then I discovered I had started developing in my late teens scoliosis. So scoliosis is like your spine starts curving. So not just is it like an S shape, it's like it's rotated as well. So experiencing back pain and these things, and went and got an X-ray, and that really floored me. So it's measured in degrees, and I was around 36 degrees is how they measured it. And that was really stressful, worrying about, especially as a young woman, a young girl, worrying about how you look, how your shoulders look, how your back looks, how you hold yourself. So I had issues going on, and I suppose that's fine. That's just who I was. And then we'll fast forward. I managed to well, another big part of the story actually is I started drinking at age 13. So, like, I look back now and I see, well, that's pretty probably normal in those circumstances because it was an escape. You're trying to numb your feelings, you can't deal with it. It was a very volatile environment to grow up with. So there was a group of us, and we just, I suppose kids growing up in trauma wasn't safe. We just drank and drank and partied, and it just started at age 13. I drank a lot, and I did a lot of damage to myself. So fast forward anyway, I managed to get through university. I went to Queen's for 4 years, got my first class honours. Don't know how I did it, but I did it. Then went to Canada for a year and came back to Dublin, partied on for a while. But all this, I guess my health, I'd kind of always been slim up till then, but I ate rubbish. I had all the drinking and the partying. I started getting all these weird allergies. Like my skin would just flare up. My neck was like hot red, and I wouldn't know what was causing this. It would go all the time, and I'd have to wear a scarf. It was like I was on fire. It was, face would swell up like randomly. Like when you see a boxer at the end of the boxing match and their eyes are all closed and they're all, that's what my face, I would wake up one morning and it would be like completely puffed. I was covered in skin tags. Things weren't good. But insulin resistance, but I didn't know what that was then. So I suppose things carried on, and my husband, I met my partner and we settled down and we have 2 kids. They're teenagers now, but he decided to give up alcohol in, I think it was 2017. And I, of course, tried to talk him out of it. Like, what are you doing? You're so boring without it. The usual Irish person being an asshole when someone tries to give up.
Yeah.
I could see he had mental health, like he went through a really bad depression for many years, but I could see the benefits he was getting from it. His weight slimmed down, he's really optimistic. He was like out walking all the time. So it really started to transform him. So a year later, it took me a whole year of watching him to decide, okay, things that got so bad, I suppose with my health and my stress and my anxiety and all these weird things that I thought were hereditary. They said because my dad has all these issues that I would have them. I had such severe hay fever and it lasted all year round. And I was on corticosteroids nasal sprays, which for years, which I later found out can cause bone issues, density issues. Nobody told me. I was on all kinds of antihistamines. But I decided, okay, if I don't do something about this, I also had crazy like sugar cravings through the roof. I would be in work in the afternoon and I could not keep my eyes open. I'd be falling asleep at the desk. Eyes rolling in my head. And I didn't understand then that's the blood sugar roller coaster, constant fatigue, constant fuzzy head, brain fog. So I give up. And then I went down a rabbit hole of all about alcohol and the damage that alcohol does to us that we don't really think about. Well, at least I didn't. And how it's a pure toxin. And it's really, there's no level of alcohol, I believe, is good for us. But what happens is, if you've been a big drinker and you stop drinking, it's just, let's just say it's not for the faint-hearted. You really have to get to know yourself. All of a sudden, you've this free time that you're not filling with drinking. Your brain is alert. It's like things start rewiring again.
You feel like you were an alcoholic back then?
I didn't see it as that, but now looking back, I think absolutely. I couldn't do anything without it. There was no
right.
And I looked at it, I was so shy, anxiety. I looked at it as a way to get rid of the anxiety. But now I understand that it feeds the anxiety. As people don't realize, they think it's a way to heal themselves and come out of their shell. And that was one of the most wonderful things. Like when I gave it up, I discovered that I actually really enjoy talking to people without it. Enjoy the conversation, hear what you're saying. You're living life in full surround sound and color, and go home and you remember things. Your brain is back to life. But because you go through this kind of, your brain starts working and you've got this free time to think about things, I kind of had a little mini crisis, like a kind of a breakdown, I suppose. I started remembering, like I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and then I'd have dreams, and then I'd have these vivid memories that would come back that I had blocked out. You know, going right back to my mom's death and all those years. I just kind of felt alone and all the awful things that happened. It just came alive. So you've got to. I can see why people give up with alcohol and go back, because you have to be brave, face your demons. I wouldn't change a thing. It's been the best thing I've ever done, is give it up. I kind of had a breakdown, confronting everything. I got so mad. I fell out with my family for 2 years. I couldn't speak to any of them. I was so angry. And I had to deal with it. I went to see a therapist just to talk it through. I was so overwhelmed with all the stuff that was happening in my brain. So the only way, I went to therapy and I talked. And then the only way I felt, if I don't change my life now and do something, I'm going to end up like my mom. So my way of dealing with it was to start running, because I was so pent up with energy and frustration. I opened the door. Wasn't much of a runner before, and I just started running and running. It was only relief I could get. So I was running about 15K, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And I would run in storms. I would run in the middle of the night. It was the only way I could deal with it. Then, of course, I started, it's kind of a story of women and how crazy we are about, we think we're doing these right things to get in shape and be healthy. So I started restricting what I was eating. And I thought what I was doing was right, was, eating as many plants and low fat, low calorie, low protein. I thought you could just eat fruit and veg, and this was the best way to eat and you'd be fine. So I started, of course, losing weight, which I thought was fabulous. Look at me, all these clothes are hanging off me, I'm great. So I went down, I'd say I went down to about 6 stone, which is not, I know, Mark, with your story, you have really challenging time with anorexia, and it wasn't anorexia. But I was, some days, I was doing a lot of fasting as well. And some days I was, say, maximum 500 calories, and I was just eating fruit. I thought, this is great. I completely lost. It was like it was a distraction from all the stuff that was going on in my brain. So the result of that, as a lesson to anybody who thinks that it's all about weight and it's all about how you look, I basically gave myself severe osteopenia, which means my bone density was really, really bad. So I wasn't just 1 digit away from osteoporosis. I managed to increase the curve of my spine because I was pounding and pounding the pain with, if you're already unbalanced and you can't keep the right posture. I progressed it from 36 to around 56 degrees. So I also caused myself to have a really bad uterine prolapse. So my insides were hanging out. I had to have surgery to sort that out. I pushed myself into early menopause because I wasn't eating any fat. I had nothing. My hormones were crazy. So I'd go to bed at night, I would sweat, and I'd have to get up change the bedclothes, put a towel down, night sweats. And I was only, this was only in my early 40s. I had no muscle. My body was practically eating itself with no fat and no muscle. And I think that's, you think, oh, just your visual muscle, but the fact your inside muscles that holds your uterine and all your bits together, that's why the prolapse had happened. Aching bones and joints. I couldn't stand up in the morning. I'd take about half an hour till I could get upright. I'd be so sore. Got to the point where I couldn't get one leg. Stairs would be agony. And this was also because I've no estrogen. I was losing estrogen, progesterone, testosterone through this. And you need that for your bones, for all health, for everything. I had IBS, I had constant constipation. The funny thing is, although I went really, really thin, I always had this big bloated balloon belly. It never went down. I had the rashes and everything were getting worse, and the swollen face. I just wake up swollen face, it'd take a day to go back, next day wake up, be the same. Hay fever was crazy. Sarcopenia, no periods, they disappeared completely because of what I was doing. So anyway, that was me. Everything got worse, and then lockdown came, no job anymore, and I just got obsessed, like most people did, with podcasts and health. And I thought I was being healthy. So I started listening to loads of things, started opening my eyes a bit, and then I signed up for a course to do health and nutrition coaching, which was a one course, and it was really enjoyable. Now there was no such thing as carnivore, like it was all plant-based. It was like cut back your meat, cut back your saturated. But I did learn a lot about just good sleep, circadian rhythm, all these basic things that we can do to and it was all about whole food, get rid of all the processed things, which from processed junk to whole foods is going to feel benefits. But I thought, again, I'm getting all these illnesses because I'm not eating enough plants. So I kept piling on. Called me mummies, like trying to get them to eat smoothies and vegetables every day. Piling them all, and all I was doing was getting worse and sicker. But the more sicker I got, I thought I'm not doing it hard enough. I'm not eating enough. So fast forward, I got an assignment as part of this course, and I think they really regretted giving me this assignment. This changed my life. I was so happy for this. So we had to pick 2 diets of our choice, and we had to compare them. And we had to write all the pros and cons of each and how they measured up nutrient deficiencies and how easy was it to access these foods. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? So I thought, okay, vegan is quite an extreme diet. Of course, it's wonderful. It's so healthy. It's all the vegetables that I was doing and cutting back on meat and protein. So vegan's a clear winner. And then I said, I might compare it with keto. I've heard of this keto thing that they keep telling me in the course that it's dangerous and extreme, and you need to from that, and a balanced diet. And then I started looking into keto, and I came across this really weird thing called carnivore diet. And I was like, what in God's name? This sounds really interesting, because they're completely opposite. So I started researching into it, all the vegan stuff. I find on my search, I find Anthony Chaffee, and I found this one of his now famous lectures on plants are trying to kill you. And I listened to that, and my mind was blown. I thought, insane, like what the hell? And for the first time in my life, I was like, plants have toxins? Plants have anti-nutrients? What is this man talking about? Meat, you should eat meat. Plants aren't bioavailable. Plants cause autoimmune. What? Humans didn't evolve eating masses of plants. We were hunter-gatherers. What? down a rabbit hole, and I've still not come out of it, Mark. Anthony Chafee, then I listened to him, and he did his first interview with, Richard Smith, Keto Pro, your world champion bodybuilder doing it all carnivore. He then was digging into, all the falsehoods about plants and all the gut permeability, leaky gut. I had that. I started to work out that, oh my God, this is why I have all these reactions. My gut is destroyed with all these plants breaking down my barriers, infiltrating my system, and my immune system is going crazy. Then, the usual stories, Professor Tim Noakes and what happened to him, and Gary Fecky and his wife Belinda, working out that, food guidelines all kind of were based around religion and the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and about trying to tell us that meat was bad because, it was bad for our, our hormones, and we were sinners and we should eat grains so that we've poor hormones, and we don't want to masturbate, and we don't want to do all these.
Yeah.
And then, John Hart, cereal because he thought we were all sinners, and the awful things that he did to young children I won't go into, but I think he was involved in mental asylums, and how the food pyramid evolved, eat the food pyramid and look like the food pyramid, when you work it out. Yeah, and I went into paleoanthropology, and Mickey Bendor. Oh, he's just so fascinating to listen to. How, over 2.5 million years, we basically just ate meat, and you couldn't. Plants were so limited to, old roots in the ground to sustain us when meat wasn't available. And, every single piece of land that humans, we wiped out the megafauna every single way because that was our food. We ate the fat, and that's how our brain evolved. That's how we had intelligence and be who we are. Guts, we ate. Anyway, I'm waffling on. And then you come across the endless stories of health and recovery with the carnivore. And you're just listening to these, people reverse, obviously diabetes, of course, dementia, autoimmune, sclerosis, heart issues, people just regaining their life, changing what they eat and do. An ancestral diet are evolved and adapt. Complicated. You fill your fridge full of things that are moldy and off. Just 90% of the supermarket you don't even need to look at. It's so simple. So, but assignment anyway, I was like, I couldn't stop writing, and I wrote pages and pages, and by the end of it I was like, I'm going to try this flipping diet. Vegan diet, it was like just constant nutritional deficiencies. Kids growing up undersized, problems with their IQ, smaller brains, so many issues. And I was like, what am I doing? So, yeah, I started, even though the lectures in the course were like, you got to be careful. And what about the microbiome? And what about fiber? And so I had to work all that out as I went. But I can just tell you, I have a brief list. I've listed things down. So the depression vanished. The anxiety, I just can't explain it. It's like my brain came back alive, Mark. I don't know. It just sounds like it sounds crazy, but I mean, I'd be bouncing out of bed in the morning, like full of life, almost like a euphoria. How I can joy, like positivity for life. And I used to with the anxiety where I couldn't look people in the eye. I'd be so anxious and nervous. And then all of a sudden I noticed I was like chatting to people, like looking right at them, going, there's something different in my brain. There's something, and people don't realize, metabolic health is brain health. It's not body and diabetes. If you have a poor glucose metabolism, your brain can't function properly. Even if you're
Exactly.
just producing your own glucose, it needs the insulin to get the glucose.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I look back at my past and I think all those health issues in my family that I was so afraid of, that everyone kept telling me was genetic, they're all at their core is metabolic health. Even schizophrenia now, Palmer and everything, you can see him helping people manage symptoms or even reverse it, take it away for people with ketogenic carnivore diets, which my brother had suffered with schizophrenia. Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes, it's all glucose metabolism. Cancer is a metabolic disease, which I'm now starting to study. Anyway, so the anxiety, everything lifted. My brain came back to life. Studying was so much easier. I couldn't focus on a book. Now I'm flying through them. Insulin resistance obviously was gone. All the skin tags disappeared. They were all over my front, all down. Just fell off, disappeared. Weird mole things that I didn't know what they were. They're gone. Never needed to nap. Just balanced energy all day. Keep. I actually gained weight on carnivore. And I think that's the wonderful thing about carnivore. It gets you to where you need to be. I wasn't healthy at weight, and now I'm back to the weight, excuse me, I was in my 20s, which I think with. But I've also got to remember, excuse me, my bone density. Sorry, I reversed the osteopenia. So my bone density is back up to normal, and I have stronger bones. I have muscle. I had complete muscle wastage before, so now I'm lifting stuff, dragging stuff. I never stop. My allergies all vanished. They never came back. I have nothing. I used to be allergic to cats, dogs, horses. All that's gone. I spent last summer sitting in Phoenix Park with my dog in the meadow, no medications, and I'm like, oh God. My family was sneezing more than me. I didn't sneeze once.
Wow.
No big eyes, no like wheezing, no puffed up face, all gone. And people say, those things are with you for like, no, it was the food I was eating. Permeability is all healed, which I think has healed the allergies. And the really weird thing is now I'm 48 kilograms now. I'm only 5'3". The clothes I had when I was underweight still fit me. My actual waist has got smaller, even though I was way less weight. And it's just body, and that's what women, it's just about losing the weight, but it's not. Because my ball was swollen with all the allergy, the histamine going crazy, and now it's not. The Raynaud syndrome is completely gone. That used to be like my fingers would go bright white and completely numb. You couldn't feel a thing. So even at some points driving the car was difficult. You couldn't even feel the steering wheel. That's gone, never came back. Scoliosis is something, obviously it's structural. So I work with a guy that helps me train with that, but I've got it back by about 10 degrees. And I just focus on that. It's strengthening my muscles. Hormones are all balanced. I don't have any more crazy hot flashes and sweating all night long, and I used to have crazy rage. That's all just normal. I've no more aching joints. My hair grew thicker. I used to have weird things on my nails, like even like I don't know what it was. Like my toenails, I hated. There was they were yellowy color. They're all perfect now. My eyesight has improved. I don't need reading glasses anymore, which I thought that just happens when you get older and it's just normal, and it's not. So I don't, and I really was kind of a bit disappointed because I loved the glasses. I got a really trendy pair of glasses. Yeah, I could probably keep going on.
No, honestly, Lucy, that's an amazing story. I've known you now for nearly a year now, and I never knew this about you.
I don't talk. I think I've spent so much trying to run away from myself in the past that I don't talk about it. So
Do you tell me this much? Do you feel proud that you've talked about it?
I'm glad that you pushed me to do it because it made me think about how far I've come, I guess.
Well, the way I see it is, you can't hold that in for the rest of your life.
No, no. And that's what my husband was saying. He was saying, look, he's done talks and things about his life. And he said, once you do it, it's like kind of, that's it done.
Because the thing is, Lucy, like when you spoke to me about your story, in the last I'd say in the last 2 years, I think I've worked with two ladies that were similar to you, very very similar. I had a woman that was, her anxiety was going through the roof. She didn't realize she was an alcoholic, and on top of that, she was actually adding more anxiety because she would drink around 10, 15 cups of tea a day with sugar sweetener, and her anxiety was getting worse and worse and worse. And she couldn't understand why she was so angry. And like her husband left her. Her husband left her after 6 months, and she was absolutely heartbroken over it, heartbroken. And she was on the verge many, many times of ending her life because she couldn't see a way out. And she didn't understand what the demons were. She couldn't understand why she was going through all this pain. And she heard me on a podcast back then, and she realized that she might have a sugar addiction. And when she reached out to me, she wanted answers. She's like, Mark, have you ever heard of a sugar addiction? I was like, yeah, that's what I focus on. That's what I work on. And she was like, thank God, I thought I was going crazy. And I was like, no, it's actually a thing. And she was like, oh, I just thought I needed to lose weight. And I was like, no, 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 no. There's just so much there that we need to fix. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going through an awful lot of emotion at the moment. A lot of emotion at the moment. You should be focusing on that. You should be focusing on that. And she was like, nobody's ever told me this before. And I'm like, yeah, because it's a broken system. It's a broken system. Nobody's actually told me. This is what's going on at the moment.
Numb it all out, you know? That's the
Mm,
thing. So
mm.
if you don't give yourself time to think, if you're always filling yourself with alcohol to deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm absolutely proud of you for saying this, because this is what you needed to do. Because as I said, I didn't notice about you. I didn't. I knew a little bit about you, but I didn't know this. And now I understand where the anxiety comes from. Now I understand that you were a little bit fearful coming on. Now I understand it now, whereas before I didn't understand it.
I know, but I suppose it's not often you're going to sit and tell someone your life story, you know.
Mm.
Very,
But in a way though, it actually works, because you'll hear a lot of people say that if you're going through mental health issues, you need to talk to people.
oh, absolutely. But the thing is, Mark, I went to the therapy sessions before lockdown and stopped, and I could have talked and talked, and I cried and I cried, and it was like I couldn't
Mm,
even speak, crying so much
mm,
because it was all this stuff held in. And talking is really important. You've got to
mm,
offload. But what I also learned is, you know, with a lot of mental health issues, if your brain has a, as I said, poor glucose metabolism, and your brain is not working properly because of what you're drinking or what you're, no amount of talking
mm,
repair that.
mm,
You know, I could have
mm,
talked, and you know, until I got rid of the foods, it was then my brain just everything evaporated.
mm.
Talking for years more and not changing diet or doing it to help my brain.
Well, see, you were one of the lucky ones because you actually did this yourself.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't realize they have an addiction.
I know. And I did, I thought it like, I thought, how could I?
Mm,
But it was, I couldn't do anything without it. And to be honest, lots of drugs, lots back in my youth. It was
mm,
mad, clubbing, crazy. and I just couldn't do anything without it. So it's like, I kind of think I spent the first 40 years of my life destroying myself. I'll spend the next 40 fixing myself or putting it off.
That's what I was gonna say to you. How long are you doing carnivore now?
2 years this month. Woohoo!
So do you feel like at this stage in your life you're fully healed, or do you feel like you've a few more years to go?
I think I've a few more years to go because I think it's just going to keep getting better. People talking. I mean, even Richard Smith said today that he's been on it. Oh, it must be 8 or 10 years or something. Look back to pictures of him maybe 2 years ago, and he sees that he was still inflamed in the face, which at the time he thought he was in great shape, but that was when he was even 6 years in, and then he's changed. So I think the body, I mean, we don't know what's going on inside us and the damage we've caused, but I do know that our bodies are equipped to heal. They don't want to be dysfunctional. They're designed where they should be well. But we just have to give them the right environment and the right, and it has an innate wisdom to recover and look after us. That's all it wants to do.
Absolutely.
So I just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I'm the same. Like I don't look at myself any different to compare to what I was years ago. I still see myself as obese, or I still see myself as anorexic. You see me in the gym, I'm always wearing the jumpers. It's because of that body dysmorphia that I used to suffer with. I don't think I'll ever get rid of that. I can't. You'll never ever see me walking into the gym with a vest on because of that fear.
Just, but that's, I would say, Mark, that's subconscious. You've got to somehow into your subconscious.
I'm trying. Trust me, I'm trying.
Yeah, because that's not. You can deal with it mentally. You can say, "Oh, I'm being silly. I know this is crazy. I'm fine." But the body holds the memories.
I know.
Conscious is the body hold. What is it? The brilliant book, The Body Keeps the Score. You ever read?
Yeah, I have. I've read it. Yeah.
The fascia. Some people say in the fascia is where the subconscious lies. Some scientists. So the body. Anyway.
So tell me this much. Then you're on. What does a typical day food wise look like for you at the moment?
I'm really only on 2 meals a day because I just can't eat anymore. I mean, as you know yourself, naturally, you kind of go into a natural rhythm. I don't think of it as fasting. I just think of it to eat when you're hungry. So I might have. I'm really into the fish at the moment, oily fish. DHA is just so crucial, especially the omega-3s are especially good for sunshine. So I might have like organic salmon or loads of sardines and eggs and stuff for my, I suppose, my late lunch meal. I try and keep that fit. And then for dinner, it could be anything like steaks, ground beef. I eat a little bit of cheese, but I find I think it can be inflammatory. Feta cheese. I love lamb, like roast lamb. Rack of lamb is my favorite. Luckily, my kids love it as well. And lamb is really good for omega-3 as well. What do I have? I eat, it's a bit odd, I eat anchovies on the side. I love that salty flavor with the steak. I'm sure no one else. Loads of eggs. Any kind of meat, like anything.
Are you counting calories at the moment?
No, I don't count calories. I mean,
good.
I do have lots of apps, but I kind of generally know from years of counting calories. You kind of know without even using it. So I'm kind of come in around the same every day. But it's just if I go to the gym and say I'm extra hungry, I just eat.
And there's no guilt. There's no guilt there.
It's like, and it's just you eat until you're absolutely stuffed, and that's it. So like it's just so simple. Like,
That's the one thing I love about it. I love because I used to have a ferocious appetite. I could eat non-stop and I could never control myself. But now, like you, I can have 1 or 2 meals a day. I can have 2 meals and I'm satisfied. That's it. I'm done. I'll just eat, and then my brain will just tell me, like, listen, okay, you've done. You don't need to eat anymore for a couple of hours.
I find it so liberating.
Mm.
And I don't ever, sorry, my little dog's beside me here. I don't feel I'm missing out on anything. I
No.
don't, like, I have 2 teenage kids and we eat a lot of meat, but they still eat teenage stuff. That's a different story. I don't look at any of that stuff if I go to the supermarket. It's just not food.
Mm.
Oh, like 90% of the stuff there is just factory made substances.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of your kids, how do you actually work around that? Because that's one conversation that I have with a lot of people in the carnivore community. I have a daughter as well. She's 21. And we're always talking about, like, how do you get that balance?
Yeah.
Because like my daughter now, she eats really, really badly. And you don't want to come across as an arsehole. You don't want to come across as a bad parent, but at the same time, it absolutely kills me when I'm going out to the shops and buying this stuff for her, because I know it's actually going to kill her very, very quickly.
Oh, I know. I'm kind of lucky, I guess. Mine, they're 13 boy and a 15-year-old girl now. And they've been through it all with me because I pushed the vegetables and everything on them.
Mm.
So I kind of feel like I can't now be switching my story.
Mm.
I talk to them as much as possible.
Mm.
They do. We always, every night, because I'm in charge of the food, so it'll always be meat based. But they might have, like, say, sweet potatoes or fries or
Mm.
pasta. It's not the worst, but
Mm.
understand, because I talk to them all the time about the nutritional benefits and the bioavailability, and I don't buy any veg anymore.
Mm.
I don't make them happy. They like sweet potato fries, that's it, and chips, but I don't make them, and there's no difference in their health. And I know when they're getting a good bit of meat into their
Mm.
day,
Mm.
that they're good. That's good for their health. They're getting what they need. And it, like, my little fella, he would be an easy carnivore because he loves coming in and he looks for the meat now and he asks me for the steaks, and because he thinks about, having muscle and being strong. So I talk to him, and my daughter knows that, if she eats more meat, she'd have less period cramps. If she eats more processed shit, she's terrible cramps, and the person struggles with all that, and her hormones are all over the place. They kind of, and they know, like, they listen. I'm, like, always talking to them about everything about nutrition, but I know I tell them, like, I can only be a role model, and by talk to them, and it's up to them. It's their life. I can't put anything on, do anything. But I think just lead by example is the best you can do, and
that's what I try to do as well, because I always just say, like, okay, how can I work around this? And what I usually do, if she has too much on her plate, I'll always say to her, just eat the meat first.
Yeah.
Don't eat, just eat the vegetables and carbohydrates second. Just eat the meat first and see how you feel. And most of the time when she eats it, it's exactly what I want. She's full. She won't even go near the carbohydrates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's small things like that. But she has, like, a cupboard in there, like, she eats cereal, and it's just like, and I do have those conversations, but I think it's harder when they're older. I think you can get away with it when you're younger,
Yeah.
but I think when they're older, they can make up their own minds, and I think that's where I regret it, that I didn't have this conversation with her, like, say, 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can all look back and think, geez, I think if only I discovered carnivore 10 years ago, how much better things would be. I regret, I wish I was carnivore when pregnant. I mean, I do, and I think, oh my God, what healthy babies must they be on an animal-based diet.
Yeah.
Up their kids on an animal-based diet, and they're so thriving in the health. And I blame myself, like, my daughter, had very overcrowded teeth and an underbite.
Mm.
And through 2.5 years of orthodontic treatment, braces to straighten it. And I blame myself for that, Mark. Mother's diet and nutritional status, which causes the teeth issues in the offspring. People, even the ancient Egyptians were mad about bread, and they were one of the most unhealthy people. They all died young, and they'd all misshapen teeth and arthritis, and so we know it's linked to what you're eating. So I do blame myself for things like that, but at the same time, I didn't know. I didn't have a clue back then.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, because when people talk about genetics that it's in the family, I can understand the point. For example, like my mother and father drank an awful lot with me when they had me, and it was the same with my two brothers. But my two brothers now drink a lot, but I don't. I don't drink at all. So I'm looking back at it and say, oh well, how come I never ended up like them? And I was the first one out. So if anything, I should have been the one that was like drinking, getting those bad habits. Because I've had this conversation with my mother in the past, and she told me that she was actually drinking on the way into the hospital when she actually gave birth to me. And
Mad.
it was actually a norm. The doctors were saying, have a few drinks, you're gonna have a child now.
Crazy.
Crazy shit, man. Crazy shit. And it's crazy because when my brothers came, like the gap is, I think the gap is 4 years between me and the second youngest, and it's mad because I look back at it now and I'm like, first of all, they're well taller, like they're like 6 foot tall, and they're drinking like nonstop. They love their alcohol. I'm like, how come it how come it happened to me but it didn't happen to them? What now? Where I feel like I got my dad's genetics. Like he always was very skinny on the top, but he always had this beer belly, always. And that's where I struggled with when I was younger. I always was very thin at the top, but I always had this big, huge gut that I just didn't like. And that was the one thing I wanted to lose, and I could never lose it no matter what. No matter what exercise I was doing, no matter what food I was eating, I just could not lose it.
Yeah.
And I used to always think when I was in school, okay, this is just genetics. Like I don't understand why I don't understand why I just can't lose the stomach. But then it wasn't until I realized, like, Jesus, 40 years later, when I actually got into the carnivore lifestyle and I learned about insulin and hormones and stuff like that, I was like, holy shit, like, why wasn't I not told this back in college when I was 21 years of age?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because I fear was like, I'm going to get cancer like my mom, and I'm going to get all these Alzheimer's. Is just deep in my family. And it's like, yes, we may have these genetics, the same that runs the family, but as they say, genetics loads the gun, but
Exactly, yeah.
environment and lifestyle are prior. So
Mm-hmm.
we have the ability to stop those
To
genes.
control it, yeah.
That's what I feel like I've won the lottery.
Mm.
I feel like I finally stopped the pattern in my family, because I feel like my mom now, she died at 46, I'm 48. And I kind of feel so optimistic for my future, because I think even if Alzheimer's runs deep, it starts like 10 to 20 years before symptoms appear. So I at least I'm being proactive and preventative, and I'm the best thing that I can for my metabolic health. These things happening.
And isn't it amazing when you talk to people and you ask them like what makes you happy, and they'll say, well, I like to have a pizza at the weekend. I like to have a few drinks at the weekend. But then when you ask someone like yourself, or I've had this conversation with a few people, it's like, can you tell me what makes you happy? And they're like, just living longer, just been in the moment. And when
Yeah,
you think about that, it's like, shit, that's what we should be all striving for.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're alive in this very moment. Like that's,
And
you know,
we're not here for very long. That's the thing.
it's precious.
Mm,
That's what I always thought. Like I always thought I'm going to be dead by my mid-40s. Sure, what's the point?
mm,
So much to live for. There's so much to learn. There's so
mm,
much to find out, to experience. And it's just appreciating the little things in life. They're
mm,
so sunny
mm,
day.
mm.
God, it's
Oh,
outside,
it's
you know?
amazing. It's amazing. When the sun shines out, I do whatever I can to try and get out on it. I'll do
Yeah.
whatever I can just to get out on it for a half an hour, just get that vitamin D in my eyes. It just makes you so happy. It's just the
Well,
small things. It doesn't cost a thing.
but that's another thing as well. Like it's, I could go down a big rabbit hole, but it's not just our food environment. It's our
Mm,
light and
I know.
killing and destroying mental and physical health. But sun is so important, and it's just another instance of return to nature.
Mm,
You know, natural diet or
mm,
natural.
mm.
Do more of that, and your health will just improve. It's so simple.
Well, this is
Like
why we need to keep on spreading the message, Lucy. We have to do our
yeah,
part. We have to do our part. I'm doing my best now, getting on these podcasts and just explaining to people there's not one voice anymore. There's another voice out there, and we just need to let people listen to it.
and there's tons. There's because I'm part of carnivore communities now, and there's tons of us out there.
Mm. Oh, it's
This
unbelievable. I'd say 4 years ago there wasn't as many as there is now.
oh totally, and I mean I have been doing courses where I'm told like I'm studying nutritional therapy and ketogenic diets, and you know I was the first day of the course I was told that somebody mentioned carnivore diet, and they said, "Oh, that's a fad diet.
I
That's just
know.
influencers. That's ridiculous. And anyone who's going to eat based on that unqualified, blah blah blah, you
Mm,
know." And so at the start, it shut me down. I had to
mm,
hide my
mm,
identity. Oh, I'm not I was eating carnivore at this time,
mm.
but yeah. I mean, there's just so much. I don't know, fear or misinformation about something that is so simple about how we were supposed to eat.
But I think when we come up against these people, we need to make sure we don't back down.
I'm learning that now, Mark, because my natural way is just to hide and go, okay, I'll just keep my head down. And
Mm. Yeah, but see, if you do that, you're letting them win.
I know. And
And
it's
you know what I mean? Because you know, I'm going on a podcast now in a few weeks' time with a woman at the moment, and she goes against the narrative what I believe in.
this the cholesterol lady.
Mm,
I just stumbled across her stuff because it came up, you know, the way your feed promotes stuff to you,
mm,
and it tracks because I was like, what is she pushing? Like,
mm,
this is quite a load of nonsense.
mm,
Fear based on things that have been cleared of harm, you know, and
mm.
of plant sterols, plant cholesterol. It's a load of nonsense. And
Oh, it's unbelievable. And now she has a product, and she's doing quite well selling it, and that's where I'm really looking forward now to having the conversation with her, because I'll be nailing her on this, nailing her, because I think I won't tell her, I won't say it to her face that she's a disgrace, but I'll say something as close to it as possible. I'll make sure I'm polite, but I just don't agree with. And like, if you scroll through my feed, this is the one woman that I've actually criticized a lot in the last 2 years. I think I have around 10 to 15 videos on this woman. And I think that I'm convinced that's the reason why she sent me an email.
well, I think, in my opinion, she's acting a bit like the pharmaceutical companies. It's like create the problem and sell you the product. And there's
Absolutely. 100%.
vulnerable, particularly women out there that are, we're all in such bad health, such messed up hormones because of what we're doing, and they're
Mm,
all, and people think a pill for every ill. They only need this supplement and that thing, and everything will
mm,
be fine.
mm.
That's not selling products. That's not what we need.
And isn't it a pity That's the route we're going now at the moment. That everything is medicated.
Everything. And we don't get sick or have high cholesterol because we're deficient in a statin
Mm.
or
Mm.
deficient plant cholesterol, or we're not deficient in all these supplements and biohacking things. And
Mm.
sometimes you think you're going to lose your mind when you look through some.
Isn't it such a pity? You see all the kids in the gym with all the protein shakes, all the protein bars. They're spending all this money on this crap, and you're like, just put it into real food. That's it. If you want to change, if you want to change the way you look, if you want to change your mental health. I mean, I've had this conversation with people in the gym, in the change rooms, and you hear the conversation with youths, and they're going through mental health issues. They're going through depression. And
Oh,
it's like Jesus Christ. Like when are we actually going to get to a time when we actually sit down and talk to these kids and speak to them and say, listen, you need to focus on what you're eating, the diet that you're eating at the moment, all these energy drinks, I mean, these protein bars, you're just filling your body with crap. And
don't
it's
know.
like, and the fitness industry is promoting it.
They're feeding off it. That's their profit. That's how they survive. It's
Disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful.
told you, Mark, I helped a young girl, kind of late teens, in the ladies, having a huge panic attack. And she was in and she was hyperventilating in the loo. And I was like, she's only young. And I was like, okay. And so I talked her through and I was saying, just breathe, let it pass, let it go. You're safe. You're absolutely. And she calmed down and she came out and she was shaking and she was covered in acne. And she said these happen all the time and shaken, and she had her energy drink. And I'm just thinking, the eczema and the panic attacks and all,
Mm,
it's so what they're putting in their bodies
mm,
because they're all eating the crap. And she
mm,
was very thin, and I was thinking, where do you start? Like, I'd love to be able to help her to say, look,
mm,
just sugar out,
mm,
take it all out. But,
mm.
you don't people, but it was. I just thought, God, the youth of today, like, it's so hard. Like, those panic attacks, nobody had panic attacks back when I was a kid. It was just rare,
You
And
look at what's going on at the moment with ADHD and bipolar and all these stuff. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. 100 years ago, these issues didn't even nobody even knew the names of these things. But now in the last, what, 20, 30, 40 years, it's actually gotten worse. And everybody, and you look at what I was only looking at one there yesterday when the young, I don't know if you've seen it on the news. There's a young girl now protesting in town.
no,
She's doing 2 days. But there's this. Oh, it's actually for autism.
okay,
There's a waiting list for up to nearly 6 years to be diagnosed with autism. 6 fucking years, like, and she's after going on a protest outside the doll.
God, no, it's shocking. And
And you know what I
autism
mean?
roof as well, going through the roof. Like,
Yeah.
and they're trying to say it's genetic. It's like it is impossible
Mm,
for go from whatever they've gone to sky high in that amount of time and it to be genetic.
mm.
It's just, it's something we are
And
doing.
and all I see is all these Irish influencers on social media giving out about the waiting list of autism, and they're saying like the doctors need to see these people, and it really annoys me because I'm like, they don't need to go and see these doctors. What we should be focusing on is the diet. The doctors don't know anything about the diet, so why are we pushing these kids to go and see a doctor? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If I have a broken arm, don't get me wrong, I'm going to see the doctor. But when it
Oh,
comes to my health, I'd rather let the dog look after me.
yeah, yeah. No, I've had to. I don't go to see the doctor very often, thank God. But
Mm,
yeah, I've had to give a lovely doctor now. She's fab. But I've had to give her papers and information to explain to her about LDL because my
mm,
LDL is very explain to her about lean mass hyperresponders. But we've had a lot of discussion. She's quite open to learning, but in panic that I was going to pass it at any moment with a heart attack, and bulimia or FM, and urgent, Lucy, urgent phone calls and emails. Come in to me, yeah.
Oh my god. Well, what was the highest? Did you ever get your blood test done? What was the highest cholesterol marker you got?
I think I'm winning in all carnivores. So first of all, it was 13, my LDL.
Really?
And I can't be right. We'll do it again. It's right. It is right.
Yeah.
Did it again, but Mark, I didn't know she was going to ask me to do it again. So I had been fasting. It was in the afternoon. I had gym workout, and I had a black coffee, which is 3 of the worst things you can do for cholesterol. She did it again. It came back as 8. And her receptionist and everything was emailing, urgent, get in touch. And I was like, no. And she was like, do you want statins? Absolutely under no. So we had that, and she actually had a group meeting with her colleagues to talk it through, to explain to them on the information that I gave to her that a lot more people are doing keto diets and things now. Aware of this. And in fairness, she's lovely. And she contacted her cardiologist friend. And he said, I've heard of this lean mass hyperresponder stuff. He actually was a bit familiar. And she said, would you go for a CAC scan and all this? But I said, Mark, I don't want to waste money doing that. Because if I had calcium on my from all the damage and all the shit I've done before, I probably do. I've had really alcohol, drugs.
Yeah.
I know that what I'm doing now is how I would choose to try and heal it and repair. So even if I had a high score, I wouldn't change. I know that I'm doing everything to try and maximize my health.
100%.
Point in having the fear of it and the cost of it and the talk to my statins and all that. So I just left it. But at least she now is aware and has the discussion with her colleagues. She asked me, could she present it? I think they have kind of mini conferences and stuff. And I said, no problem. So she knows.
Brilliant. Well, you should because you, as I said, you're well educated. You know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not her fault. She is a very smart lady, she's around the same age as me, but they're so busy dealing. I mean, they're not given that education or the time to spend with, quick. It's they're medication prescribers. Medication. Let's look at what's causing this, or what you might be doing, or what you might be eating, or
100%. I know. Well, Lucy, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to say thanks very much for coming on. We've done an hour. It's after flying through. I'm actually after enjoying this conversation. I'm absolutely delighted that you came on, and as I said, now I know your story, and you should be proud that you actually spoke about it.
Thanks, Mark, and I just want to say thank you. I think it's a testament to what an amazing coach you are, that you actually coaxed me to come on in a really nice way and made me feel so comfortable. And I've just overcome a huge fear by doing this. So thank you.
Amazing stuff. All right, and I'll speak to you in the gym very soon.
Right. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.